Welcome back to Monkey Movie Club. This is a club where each week I give everybody a theme. We all submit movies that fit into the theme. We all vote on the submissions, and then we watch that movie. We do this every week. It's like a book club, except we're not nerds. I am your host, as always, Chimp Guy Movie Guy. Some of you may know. That's what my friends call me. Yeah, and I'm here to talk about some dang movies. You know, that's what this show's all about. That's why I do this. I do this for the movies and for the monkeys. You're a monkey if you watch this. You're a monkey member. Monkey Movie Club member. Before we get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about movies that are out right now that you can go see in a theater. I don't really talk about recent releases all that much because part of the rule of the club is that it has to be available on one of the major streaming services so that every member of the club can, you know, go watch it or pirate it. I didn't say that. Don't pirate stuff. That's not good. But yeah, I have seen Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon twice now. And it's very good. If you get a chance to go see it, go see it. I hate to say this, but it may be the last Martin Scorsese movie that we get to see in the theaters. It was also my first Martin Scorsese movie that I got to see in a theater. You know, he's been making stuff for a very long time, but a lot of his recent stuff, like The Irishman, got a limited theater release because it was a Netflix exclusive. Love The Irishman, by the way. And Silence before that, which was 2016. I was like just getting out of high school in 2016. I was not the Chimp Guy movie guy that I am today. Hugo before that, I think. And, you know, the further we go back, the more movies he didn't make for my appropriate age. You know, my parents aren't taking me to the theaters to see Wolf of Wall Street at 15 years old or however old I was, you know? So yeah, this is my first Martin Scorsese in a theater. Hope it's not my last. Love you, Marty. You know what? He's old. Martin Scorsese's old, but he's got life in him. I've been watching a lot of interviews of him recently. One benefit of the SAG-AFTRA strike is that Martin Scorsese is doing all the press interviews because the actors can't because they're all on strike. So it's just he's going everywhere, talking to everybody. And may not be good for his old bones, but I like listening to him yap. You know, I could listen to that man talk about movies all day. But yeah, he's got some life in him. He's talked about projects that he's interested in pursuing in the future. He's talked about co-directing to maybe take some of that weight off of him. But yeah, if you can't see, maybe this camera can pick it up. I've got literally like a Martin Scorsese shrine right here with all the Blu-rays I have. It's got a book of Scorsese. I've got the Age of Innocence screenplay. Yeah, this is my throne. This is my man. Probably the greatest living director right now. He's been doing it for a long time, and he's been doing it very well for a long time. Just, Killers of the Flower Moon's good. I don't want to get too into it because I like to sit with a film and marinate on it, and I'm honestly going to go see it more. I've seen it twice already. It's 3.5 hours, but I'm going to go see it more, you know? I think I saw Oppenheimer 4 times in theaters. So I really like for these longer movies that kind of ask you to, you know, pay attention and think about them. I like to sit with them, and but I really like it. I love these recent movies he's made. The Irishman, fun fact, a few of my friends know this. It's kind of a personal detail, but I feel like I share it with you. The Irishman kind of made Chimp Guy Movie Guy. I was not very into movies. I mean, I watched movies and I liked them. You know, I went to the theater all the time in college with my girlfriend, but I was not as into movies. I was not the chimp guy until I watched The Irishman. It was like 3 a.m. one night. I have terrible sleep. It's literally like 2 o'clock in the morning right now. We're recording this. I have terrible sleep. And it was 3 o'clock in the morning when The Irishman came out on Netflix. I didn't know. I was just scrolling, wanted to put something on. I saw it. It interested me because I always liked Goodfellas. And so I put it on. And I was like, you know what? If I fall asleep, this thing's 3.5 hours. If I fall asleep, I fall asleep. But I turned it on and I watched every second of it. And I fell in love with it. I cried. It just thoroughly moved me. And that movie made me start looking more into directors and like creative people and, you know, idea people, not just like studios. Like I went and saw like every Marvel movie, you know, or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. It's a very special movie, and he's a very special guy. I've seen a lot of his movies by now. I think according to Letterboxd, I've seen like almost 30 of his movies, and I think he's made like 55 or something. Crazy. But yeah, it's a good movie. Go see it. I don't talk about a lot of recent releases because I got to talk about 3 movies per episode. So let's get into those freaking movies, shall we? If you saw last week's episode, we talked a little bit about some black and white horror. That was our theme for last week, and the film that we watched was Young Frankenstein by Mr. Mel Brooks. I've been doing, this is Monkey Spooky Club. We've been watching spooky movies all October. And so the theme that we had for this week was Suburban Screams, kind of inspired by John Carpenter's new series that he put out on Peacock. Suburban Screams, I basically asked all the films you submit take place about like, I want the horror to come to the home, you know, like suburbia, something in your house, something affecting a small neighborhood, something like Halloween or The Strangers or, you know. And we got a pretty creative submission that one, which was Coraline, which the horror does happen in the home. So Coraline won, and we watched it. But if you know the show, you know that I watch 3 movies a week, and I try to somewhat fit them all together. And so the 3 movies that I watched are spooky Laika Studios claymation films. I watched Coraline, I watched Paranorman, and I watched The Boxtrolls. These are all movies made by Laika Studios, which primarily does stop motion, claymation, you know, animated films. Not very successful financially, but I think they're pretty good movies. So I'll talk about Coraline first, and then I'll get into some of the other ones. And I also want to talk a little bit about Laika Studios, but I feel like I might do that at the end. So stick around. I'll tell you a little bit about the history of the studio. And if you saw the title and thumbnail, it's got something to do with Nike, which is crazy. So Coraline. Coraline is a film that came out in 2009. It was directed by Henry Selick, who is not new to the claymation stop-motion gang. He also directed The Nightmare Before Christmas. Not Tim Burton. A lot of people, it's a Tim Burton movie. Tim Burton was a big producer, and I don't know if he was the creative, you know, lead or whatever, like production designer, but it was directed by Henry Selick, not Tim Burton. And he also directed the James and the Giant Peach claymation, if you didn't know. So he's been around. He's done his time in the claymation game. The movie stars Dakota Fanning as Coraline. Dakota Fanning, you've seen her. She's been in a lot of stuff. She's a very famous actress. not a lot of names that I recognized on this cast list. I got to be honest with you. I can throw up a list of the cast, but I did not recognize a lot of these people. The only names I really recognized were John Hodgman, who plays the dad. John Hodgman's a very funny comedian. I've seen him on a lot of stuff. I've seen some of his stand-up, I think. He also runs like podcasts. He's a funny guy. He's also done a lot of voice acting. I think he's in BoJack Horseman, possibly. Yeah. Also, the movie has Keith David, my close and personal friend. If you can see here, I have an autographed Blu-ray, 4K Blu-ray of They Live. I met Keith David at Texas Frightmare Convention in Irving this year. It was really cool. I love Keith David. I look up to him. He's been in a lot of my favorite movies, and this is his second appearance on the Monkey Movie Club. Before I was even filming this show, one of the movies we watched was Sam Raimi's The Quick and the Dead, and Keith David, of course, is in that movie, and he's great. Yeah, Keith David's a legend. He's got a phenomenal voice, and a lot of people recognize his voice acting work, but he's also he comes from, I think, a theater background, and he's just got this incredible presence on screen when you see him act. And when I met him, a little tangent, I was waiting in line. I was so nervous. This was one of the few people I paid money to actually see at this convention and get an autograph and talk to. He did not look like he wanted to be there. A lot of these big celebrities did not look like they wanted to be there. But he pulled his assistant to the side, and I basically got to hear Keith David give his lunch order to his assistant in that smooth, sultry voice. He pulls her aside, and he was like, "Can I get a hamburger with lots of ketchup?" I just remember that. It's amazing. He's a great guy. He was really nice to me. He did not look like he wanted to be there, but I just complimented him and said that I loved his presence and that I came from a theater background, and his voice and everything. He's just phenomenal. And he gave me a big old smile, and we talked for a little bit. But anyway, don't know why I went on that tangent, but yeah, I don't recognize a lot of these people in this movie. Just those few. Coraline. I really like this movie. It's got a simple enough story. I'll give a little premise, little synopsis. But Coraline is this little girl who moves into this. There's this huge house where all these rooms are being rented out to different people, and her family is staying in one of the rooms of this huge old house. They are from Michigan. They point that out. They're from Michigan, but they moved to this house, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's very vague where this location is. It's it looks like it's in the middle of nowhere, but small town vibes. But Coraline's parents move here, and they look like they are at the end of their rope. Like they hate everything in life. They are dead in the eyes. They work in plant biology or something like that. I think there's a word for that, and I'm just missing that right now. But yeah, they work with plants, but they do it on a computer, which is funny. Bit ironic there. They just write about plants, and they're like, they just write about plants, and they're never outside. Coraline makes a point to be like, you work with plants, but you hate dirt. And it's just the mom and dad on their computer all day. They look dead. They hate Coraline. It really seems like they can't stand her because she's just so full of life and energy, and they are just so drained. But yeah, so Coraline's moved into this new house, and she's bored out of her wits, and she finds this little door behind the wallpaper in the living room. It's this tiny, tiny little door. She's got to crouch down to even fit in it. And through the door, she finds kind of an alternate version of her reality where her mom and dad are super happy with their lives, and everything's perfect, except these family members all have buttons for eyes. And it's a little strange, a little off-putting, but they're feeding Coraline her favorite foods. She gets to do anything she wants practically, and every experience she's having here is like a positive, good, fun time. But, if that were just the movie, then that's a pretty short movie. There's got to be some conflict. There's got to be some spooky stuff. And spooky stuff does come. I don't want to give too much away, but I encourage you to go see the movie. It's on Max, formerly known as HBO Max. There is a woman kind of running this alternate reality. I don't know if she's a spirit or whatever, but she doesn't have the best intentions, and Coraline has to kind of like figure this out. And then, at one point she gets trapped in the world and she's going to get back home, stuff like that. But yeah, there's a lot of eccentric characters and which leads to a lot of really great character designs. It's a very unique looking movie. The opening of this movie is like one of my favorite things about this movie. It's basically just this sequence of this character like creating a doll, or it's like ripping the doll apart and taking the stuffing out and turning it inside out. And for someone who makes dolls, it's just an everyday process, but the way they're presenting it, it's very close, and you're kind of seeing these almost looks gruesome details of what this woman is doing, removing the stitching and pulling it inside out and ripping the stuffing out. And so it's just a very off-putting, visceral way to start this movie, and I really liked it. It looks great. That whole segment could be a short film, I feel like. It's like this juxtaposition of this childlike item, but this thing that looks like a brutal process, Looks cool. There are multiple neighbors in the movie. There is one guy who lives at the top of the house who's he does acrobatics and stuff. And then there are these two women, which they could be friends, they could be a couple, slay, whatever. But there are these two older women who are they used to be actors and now they're just old and kind of, past their prime, but they still like to dress up and act all proper and, it's cute, whatever. But these characters in the alternate reality all have the better quote unquote versions of themselves, more successful, more fit. I don't know. But I just wrote down that the structure of her going through this new world is kind of felt like a video game, in the sense that all of these different neighbors that she was introduced to and got to see, the acrobat in the other dimension, because everything's so happy and positive. He's got this circus show going on, and there's cotton candy and popcorn, and then the older women she knows, they put on this huge play production and yada, yada, yada. But then as the movie goes on and things start turning sour, the woman orchestrating this alternate dimension is now making these characters turn against her, and Coraline's almost got to have these boss fights with these neighbor characters and collect these certain items that I don't want to say. It's kind of a spoiler, but yeah, I thought that was interesting. It sets these characters up. They've got these, awesome set pieces, and then Coraline's kind of got to fight them more or less to get this item. I thought that was an interesting structure to how they set up those characters and then paid them off later. But yeah, I don't really have a ton more to say, I think, about Coraline. I don't have, this was my first time seeing it and I really enjoyed it. I don't have much of a interesting or I think unique perspective. A lot of the stuff that I've seen said about the movie, I feel, it's just very creative and it looks great. And I love stop motion. I'm a big fan of the old Rankin Bass Christmas movies. I loved those as a kid. I still love those. I love the art form. It's great. It's a very unique and painstaking process, but it pays off in my opinion. And yeah, this movie looks great. Check it out. HBO Max. Coraline. I enjoy it. It's good. The second movie I watched, made by Laika Studios for this video, was Paranorman, made in 2012. Paranorman, another stop-motion claymation movie directed by Sam Fell and Chris Butler. Chris Butler also wrote this movie, Paranorman. It stars Cody Smith McPhee. I know him mostly as the weird-looking kid from Power the Dog. Sorry, I said weird-looking. You're handsome. You're a handsome guy. But yeah, he's the main kid in Power the Dog. Did it win Best Picture, or did she just win Best Director? I don't think it won. It might have. Jane Campion. I think she might have won Best Director. But whatever. Yeah, it's a good movie. Power of the Dog's a good movie. But yeah, Cody plays Paranorman. And his friend, I forget the friend's name. He's this fat redheaded kid, played by Tucker Albrisi. Tucker Albrisi, I know him mostly as this kid from Good Luck Charlie, the Disney show back in the day. There are a lot of big names in this movie, though. Like, I wrote just some of them down for reference, like Anna Kendrick, Casey Affleck, Leslie Mann, Jeff Garlin, McLovin, the guy who plays McLovin, John Goodman. Lots of big names in this movie. But yeah, Paranorman. Paranorman is also good. I would even maybe say really good. Personally, I think. I think I may even like it more than Coraline, to be honest. It's also got, I think, it's got different spooky vibes. So Coraline you watch, and you can definitely tell that that was directed by the guy who made Nightmare Before Christmas. They've got very similar vibes. And, that's not just falls in the hands of the director. That's also, the creative team that, I don't know, made the designs and stuff. But this movie looks similar, but different. It looks different enough. Coraline looks like a Nightmare Before Christmas type movie. This one looks a little different, and I like the visuals of this one. I like the story more or less. I've seen this movie before, Paranorman, but I thought last time I saw it, I wasn't really into movies, and it seemed, I think maybe I was kind of dismissive of it because it's kind of always given me the idea that it's a kiddie movie, and I've never, I think, properly engaged with it, which is my own fault. You should give every movie the chance it deserves. But yeah, Paranorman. Paranorman also has, like Coraline, a great opening. The opening for Paranorman is like a horror film, a low-budget horror film in this universe that Norman is watching on the TV. And it's like this woman running away from a zombie, and it's classic zombie going after her, going brains. And it's really funny. It's kind of poking fun at low-budget horror as a genre because the woman's screaming, and then the boom mic gets in her face, and she has to push the boom microphone out of the frame. It's funny. It's cute. This movie makes a few horror references, and it just seems like the people who made it, love the genre of horror, and they made kind of a kid-friendly, horror movie of their own. But yeah, let me tell you a little bit about this story. As soon as we get into the movie, Norman's watching this horror movie. He's a different kid. He likes horror movies, and other kids like sports. He's got this dark hair. He's watching this horror movie with his grandma, and his grandma's asking him questions about it. She's sitting on the couch. And then he walks into the kitchen, and his parents ask him what he's doing, and he's like, "Oh, just watching a horror movie with Grandma." And the parents are like, "What did we tell you? Grandma's dead. You got to stop saying that you're talking to Grandma. She's dead." So it turns out that Mr. Norman, our main character, it gets right into it. It turns out our main character, Norman, can speak to the dead. He can speak to ghosts. Not everybody who's died, but those who have unfinished business and have not moved on to the afterlife. And Norman's grandma is there because her business is to look after Norman. Isn't that sweet? She promised that she would always look after him. That just warms my heart. Yeah. But Norman is a weird kid because of this. Like, he talks to dead people more than he talks to real people. Kids at school don't really like his vibe. They write, like, freak on his locker. Classic, people bullying him. Funny enough, McLovin voices Norman's bully, which is funny because McLovin looks like a fucking nerd. And now he's beating up people and calling them nerds. But he's like this big bully with like gauge earrings in his ears, and so Norman isn't liked by a lot of people. Doesn't have a lot of friends. His parents don't seem to like him. His sister doesn't like him, voiced by Anna Kendrick. She's like cliche preppy girl, wears pink blonde hair, always on her phone. So Norman doesn't get along with a lot of people, just dead people, and they live in Massachusetts, I believe. I don't know if it explicitly says Salem, but they do specifically say Massachusetts at one point, and the whole plot of the movie revolves around the witch trials in Massachusetts from back in the day. Norman's performing in a play for school, and the play is about this specific story that they've all been told about this evil witch who was killed, and then the witch cursed the men that killed her to come back as zombies one day and roam the earth as the undead. And Norman is told by his uncle, who is like this big stinky conspiracy theorist voiced by John Goodman. His uncle tells him, like, yo, this is real. You are the only person that can fix this because only you can talk to the dead. So, Norman, you've got to fix this. And Norman's like, you're weird. You're my weird uncle. I think he doesn't really take it that seriously. But then he is confronted by the ghost of his uncle because his uncle fucking dies. His fat, gross, stinky uncle has like a heart attack. Almost like a scene later. Like, his uncle dies almost immediately after talking to him for the first time. And then he comes back to Norman and he's like, hey, my unfinished business is you needing to fix all this. So you need to go to my dead body and you need to get this book and you need to read from the book, and that will save the day. Pretty simple enough plot. So Norman's got to go to the dead body, get the book, yada, yada, yada. And some stuff goes down, and sure enough, these 7 old, they got pilgrim hats on, they raise from the dead, and they start roaming the town as zombies, and everybody's scared. But yeah, it's a good movie. I don't want to give too much away because I think you should go you seek it out. I saw it on Tubi, which is a free streaming service. I don't even think you have to make an account. Just go to Tubi. They pay for it all with the ads. I think there are a few ads, but I didn't get any ads during my movie, before my movie. But if, Tubi's a great little service. Same with like Pluto. They usually have a ton of stuff. They put a lot of low budget stuff on their service that doesn't have like really great distribution, I think. But they've got big movies too, like Paranorman. I love the spooky vibes of this movie. It's got a lot more Halloween vibes than Coraline even, I think. It's got zombies. Pretty much just zombies. Witches too. It's got zombies and witches. But the horror references I talked about a little bit earlier, it like references Halloween a couple times, which is cute. Norman's ringtone is the Halloween theme, which is funny. Ding, 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 ding. And there's one point where his friend like calls him and says like, look outside or something. And he looks outside and his friend is like standing in the sheets, like in the laundry, on the laundry lines, whatever, clotheslines, just like Michael is, I think, in Halloween. Yeah, there's like another Halloween reference where the uncle is like standing by a bush and then disappears, just like Michael Myers does in Halloween 1. But yeah, it's made by people who I think love the genre, and they made a fun little kid-friendly version of it. The story is good for the most part. It has one of the better stories of the three. I think Coraline's pretty solid, but I will say Paranorman, I think for some of the ending stuff, it gets a little messy, but I think it earns its emotional moments. It's just a little messy, and I'll talk about it for a little bit. I put the timestamps on all the videos, so I'll talk a little bit spoilers, and then I'm going to get into Boxtrolls. But yeah, so skip to Boxtrolls if you want to go see Paranorman, which I recommend you do. It's a great little Halloween hour and a half, fun time. But the ending, so it turns out that these zombies were cursed to roam the earth undead, not to punish the town, but to punish these people who are becoming zombies. She wants them to roam undead because the witch hates these dudes because these dudes killed her. And it turns out that the witch that they killed, this is kind of dark, but the witch that they killed was a little girl. Like this, which is, crazy, because they did do that. They did do that shit. But this little girl they thought was a witch, and they killed her. And she cursed them before she died. And now they're roaming the earth because she wants them to be forced to that fate, because that doesn't sound fun, being forced to become a zombie and walk through the earth. And it's kind of funny. There's like a segment where the zombies, kind of when they realize that they're the ones being tortured and not the town, they start walking through the town, and these dudes are from what, 1600s? I don't know how long time ago, 1700s. And they see all the modern inventions. They see like cars and TVs and cheeseburgers, and they like freak out as these old zombies. And then it's so funny how the town is like immediately aggressive, which, I mean, they're zombies, so it makes sense. But the town is like, a woman literally whips out her shotgun and is like, yeah, we're gonna kill him. We're gonna murder him. And when Paranorman, I just called him Paranorman, when Norman figures all this out, he's an empathetic person, so he wants to let these zombie men, they feel bad, they've gotten to sit with this for a few hundred years, and they feel bad for killing this little girl because they were scared. And so Norman wants to put them at rest, let them, be at peace, and he also wants to give that to the young little witch girl. And so, yeah, I mean, what doesn't really work for me 100% is that Norman is like criticizing the little girl for cursing them and saying, you're just like them. And it's like, well, they killed a little girl, and then she was like, I hate you, I'm going to curse you. And I think the overall message is kind of a kiddie message of like, don't let revenge or don't let a grudge hurt yourself and hold yourself back, because this little witch girl, I don't think, has moved on to the afterlife because she has just been holding this grudge and this curse. And I think that's like the overall message, is don't let that become you. But the whole, you're no better than them for cursing them. And I'm like, I don't know. I kind of see where she's coming from. I kind of get wanting to curse 7 old white men who murdered you when you were a little girl to roam the earth as zombies. I get that. I don't think she's as bad as them, but yeah, like maybe, eye for an eye is, makes the whole world blind. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's probably my favorite of these three movies. Coraline's still great, but Paranorman, man, it's perfect Halloween vibes. And yeah, visuals great, everything. So yeah, let's get into Boxtrolls. So, the final movie of the episode, also made by Laika Studios, is The Boxtrolls from 2014, I believe. It was directed by Anthony Stacchi and Graham Annabelle. I'll put their names up, but they have not done a lot. I didn't, these guys, they're not as experienced as some of these other directors, but I won't hold that against them. Everybody's got to start somewhere. And The Boxtrolls is not bad. I think The Boxtrolls is fun. It's got some great character design as well. And yeah, let me tell you a little bit about it. The Boxtrolls stars Elle Fanning, which I think is hilarious, considering her sister, Dakota Fanning, was in another Laika movie, Coraline, that we just talked about. So these sisters are just jumping around Laika Studios. I just found that humorous. This movie also stars a few big names, like Ben Kingsley, Toni Collette, Tracy Morgan. He's in a bit role, but he's got a big name. And Nick Frost and Simon Pegg. And here's a complaint I have with the movie. You're going to put Nick Frost and Simon Pegg in a movie and not make them like buddy characters? Really? And the most fucked up thing about it is that Nick Frost plays a buddy character with this other guy. It's this guy from, I think he's from the IT Crowd or something. It's a very British movie, The Boxtrolls. Big British cast. But yeah, like, dude, you're not going to give that part to, I don't think Simon Pegg fit the voice of the character, Dr. Pickles or Mr. Pickles, like this IT Crowd guy. But come on, let them be buddies. Nick Frost is just buddies with this other guy, and you got Simon Pegg doing something else. Lost opportunity, in my opinion. Fucking Boxtrolls. Piece of shit. Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about Boxtrolls. I'll give you a little story synopsis. So, movie starts out, and it's... so the name Boxtrolls, it's pretty self-explanatory. There are these trolls in England that live in boxes. And it's older. I don't think it specifically says a time period, but it's like, it's older, And the Boxtrolls, they kind of live in hiding in England. Because they're made of boxes, like turtles, they just go into their bodies, into their boxes, and they hide. And that's how they hide in plain sight, just around other boxes, cardboard boxes. And yeah, so the movie starts out, and the Boxtrolls have a kid, like a human kid, and they're like raising this human baby. And there's like a dissolve, and the kid's older, and now this is our main character. And the main character, I forgot to write his name down. I'll put him up, but this was his first movie, I believe, and he's pretty good. He was a little British kid. Pretty good for a first movie. But yeah, these trolls in the boxes, they raise this little kid, and there's this one character who is like our cartoonishly evil villain, which, I mean, for kids' movies works or whatever, but our cartoonishly evil villain, he's trying to get rid of all the Boxtrolls. He's trying to exterminate all the Boxtrolls. That's what he does for a living, because there is this kind of high society, because there's a huge division between like the upper class and the lower class. And the upper class, they like have all these fancy clothes, and they have these big fancy white hats, and they're all about cheese, which is kind of funny. It's kind of a Wallace and Gromit situation, I guess, but cheese is almost like wealth in this movie. And so these rich people with the big white hats, they sit in a room and they just talk and eat cheese. And our main villain, our cartoonish villain, he tells this royalty, he says, if I exterminate all the Boxtrolls, then I get a big white hat. And this royal guy was like, okay, sure, whatever. So now this guy's on a mission to get a big white hat and eat cheese with all the rich people. And yeah, I mean, that's more or less the plot. Elle Fanning is the daughter of the main rich guy who promises the white hat to the villain. And she runs into the Boxtroll kid. And Boxtroll Kid is like a big deal in this town. They tell the story at like this fair. They do a play of this kid that went missing. That he's got like this, I think it's called like that. They call him the Hacksburg Kid or something, because he was this, long time ago. Everybody hates the Boxtrolls because the Boxtrolls stole this baby, and that's what it says this whole movie. The Boxtrolls are evil. They'll eat you, and they stole this baby. But obviously, the Boxtrolls aren't evil. They're sweet little monsters that just hide when confronted with anything. And they've raised this little boy, and he gets into talks with this rich little girl, and they kind of get to, this is where the heart of the story is these two kids. Yada, yada, yada. It's not super engaging, at least as much as the other two films were to me. The story's kind of messy, but I will say this one I think had more to say than the other two. I just think it was hard to balance what it was trying to say while also being a kid's movie. I don't think it balanced that very well, because I think it says a lot about like social status and class, and because our main evil guy, he sees the Boxtrolls as these lowly, pieces of crap. They're vermin almost. That's how he sees these Boxtrolls. And he says that Boxtrolls can't be good guys because they don't aspire to be anything more than vermin. And because I aspire to be royalty, that makes me a good guy. He has like a speech saying that. And it's like, it's a little on the nose, but I don't know. I think the rest of the movie, it like kind of keeps with that, because this bad guy is like, he's kind of delusional because the rich people like make fun of him because he's closer to being a box troll than he is being a rich person like them. But it's that aspiration to be rich and, be important that he thinks sets him apart from these lowly box trolls that just live in the sewer and have a happy life altogether and aren't trying to be a part of that big system. But yeah, so I think it's got a little more going on with what it's saying compared to Coraline or Paranorman. But again, it's also one of the most cartoonish of the three. So how are you going to be the one that's like trying to talk about, class and also be the one that has like the most cartoonish villain with the least motivation? That doesn't make a whole. And also like the cheese stuff is super cartoony. Like these characters are just obsessed with cheese, and that's all these rich people talk about is cheese, and it's just kind of silly, but yeah, I mean, it's good. I think the animation, again, just kind of out of the park. It's got some really cool character designs. The climax is a bit much for me, to be completely honest, compared to these other two movies, because it's just a lot. Like, there's faking killing a bunch of characters, which it was a kid's movie, so I was expecting them, there's like a point where they kill all the box trolls. And I was like, no fucking way is this movie going to murder every single box troll, like in a box crusher. No way this movie's going to do that, because the main character sees it and like fucking cries. And I was like, no way this, like, you are insane if you're doing this right now. I mean, honestly, I don't know. If I didn't love these little goblins in these boxes, if I didn't think they were cute and charming, then I might have respected the decision to murder all of them and just stick with it. But no, of course, they go back and they're like, nope, they're alive. They left their boxes before they died. So they're all okay. But yeah, I mean, there's also like this huge machine that the guy builds. So it's kind of like a boss fight at the end with this huge like mech machine. And it was too much, I think, for what this movie was. But yeah. Oh, also, it turns out the Boxtrolls are not evil, okay? The Boxtrolls did not steal this little baby, as a lot of people think. That's propaganda against the Boxtrolls. Our cartoonishly evil villain has apparently always just been a piece of shit and fucking killed our main character's dad. And before he was killed, the dad befriended the Boxtrolls and gave the Boxtrolls his son to watch after. So the Boxtrolls aren't evil, guys. They did not steal the baby. They were given the baby by the guy who was then murdered. And of course, it turns out that guy wasn't murdered. He's been held in captivity by this evil person. And there's a lot of death fake outs. Yeah, there's a lot of death fake outs. First of all, when the main bad guy is like hunting Boxtrolls to get his big white hat, he is like capturing them, and they're even like fucking shooting harpoons through the boxes and then dragging them off. And there's this really sad shot of when they go to sleep at night, they stack all their boxes together. And there was this shot of all the boxes, and then it dissolves, and there's less boxes, and it dissolves, and there's less boxes. And I was like, oh my God, he's committing a like fucking Boxtroll genocide, dude. And the first fake out death is, I was like, they're not killing all of these, are they? Because, you know, I was like, that's pretty dark. No, he's captured all these Boxtrolls and he's made them laborers to build this big machine at the end. And I was like, okay, that was our first fake out death, whatever. And then we get the dad was murdered. We get that whole story. But then when he goes to save the Boxtrolls, there's this crazy old man in there. And that's the main character's dad. See, he didn't kill him. He just, for some reason, has held him in captivity for 14 years. It's like, okay. Then I was like, okay. Yeah. And then they have the fake out death at the end where he kills all the Boxtrolls. And I was like, no fucking way. You've done this twice now. No goddamn way you're killing every single fucking Boxtroll. And they didn't. So it was a little much. I also feel like the dad, I was actually kind of moved by the dad part. I think they just executed it well. The dad being one of the few people that actually befriend the Boxtrolls and then entrust them with the son. I thought that was like a strong answer to the question of, did the Boxtrolls steal this kid? What happened? And I thought it was, you know, they were creating a connection with the main character and this one Boxtroll named Fish, like where Fish was like this main character's dad, you know? But no, they just bring the dad back and it kind of just ruins everything. Not everything. It just ruins that whole dad subplot. Like, okay, well, his real dad's here, so fuck Fish, I guess. Which I thought this was cute, but all the Boxtrolls are named after, the Boxtrolls don't really speak English, just the main character, whose name is Eggs. I just remembered it because of this detail, but all the trolls are called by what's on their box, which I think is funny. So, like, Eggs is because the box that the baby was in was a box for eggs, and it has, like, a picture of eggs on it. His Boxtroll dad was named Fish because he had a box that had a fish on it. You know, I thought that was funny. I thought that was cute. But yeah, I mean, the weakest of the three, but still somewhat enjoyable. I mean, it's on Netflix, so check it out, I guess, for the visuals alone. I really do like the trolls' designs. And I even like the villains' designs and the British people's designs. What I do like about this movie is it shows the real truth about how all British people are evil. Except the kids. The British kids aren't all evil, just all the British adults. The British adults suck in this movie, dude. Like, cartoonishly so. I mean, I already said the villain was kind of cartoonish, but the main dad is like, literally there's a scene, they're all obsessed with cheese, like I said, but there's a scene where the dad goes, "Oh, we have all this money that we were going to build a children's hospital, but instead we have," he has this big loaf of brie cheese. I don't know if it's called a loaf, block, cute, whatever, wheel. He has this huge wheel of brie cheese, and he's like, "This is the money we spent instead of funding a children's hospital." And it's like, okay, dude, I know British people are evil. You don't have to tell me that. No, I mean, like I said, I just think it's too cartoonish, considering it's also handling like the biggest ideas thematically, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it well enough. But yeah, guys, those were my 3 movies for the week. Isn't that fun? Laika Studios. Let me tell you a little bit about Laika Studios. Like I said I would. It's got an interesting past, okay? So, in 1975, a man named Will Vinton created Will Vinton Studios, which was another animation, claymation company. And this guy is apparently known as like the father of claymation. There's even a documentary about him called Clay Dream that came out a couple years ago. I want to watch that now because he's done a lot of stuff. He did a lot of commercial work with claymation. He animated, or his studio created the California Raisins, the claymation California Raisins. He also did the Domino's Noid. It's a little before my time, but I'm aware of it. And he did the M&M's characters for the commercials before it was all CG. They also, this was one of the only, they've done a lot of stuff, but a lot of stuff that was before my time or a bit obscure. The one thing I did recognize, though, was the Eddie Murphy show. They produced this show called The PJs, which was basically like a black family sitcom, but claymation. I watched it a little bit when I was younger. I watched reruns of it. Same with Glenn Martin DDS. If you ever watched that. I don't know. I just always liked claymation, animation, stop motion. So any kind of show that came on like that, I was just intrigued by it. Will Vinton Studios was kind of running low on funds when the 2000s came around. And in 2002, Phil Knight was brought on as an investor. And he put a lot of money into the Will Vinton Studios because Phil Knight's son, Travis Knight, was an intern and an animator at Will Vinton Studios. His son loved that kind of animation, and he also apparently loved to rap. A little bit of Travis Knight's rapping. So that's cool. But yeah, I'm assuming he told his dad, like, hey, I like this place, put money into it so we can keep doing stuff. And eventually, by 2005, Phil Knight owned the majority of the stock of Will Vinton Studios and ended up just kicking Will Vinton out and rebranding it in 2005 as Laika and putting his son, Travis Knight, in the seat as president and CEO. And apparently there was a pretty big lawsuit. Will Vinton was not super happy about being kicked out of his own company and sued for damages. I didn't read up too much on the result of that. I didn't see much about it. But yeah, Will Vinton was not happy with that. But here's Travis Knight, Nepo Baby of the Week. Let's go, Nepo Baby of the Week. Travis Knight got to now, be lead animator for some of these big Laika Studios films. And he's even gotten into directing. I believe his directorial debut was Kubo and the Two Strings, which was actually an Oscar-nominated claymation movie that they put out. But he also directed Bumblebee, the Transformers spinoff. So he's kind of moving out of animation and directing live action, which is interesting. And I heard some good things about Bumblebee. I heard that it was different than the other Transformer films, but in a good way. And I might check it out eventually. I don't know. But yeah, Mr. Travis Knight in the director's chair now. But yeah, that's a little bit about the story. Travis Knight is still, president, CEO. And they keep making movies. But man, the movies that Laika is making cost more and more money each year, and they're making less and less money each year. They need to get in good with a distributor and like sign a contract deal, make a bunch of Netflix originals or Hulu originals or something, man, because they're kind of floundering. But as long as they got that Nike money, I guess they're, Mr. Phil Knight, played by Ben Affleck in the film Air, which was good. Air's good. But yeah, guys, that's about all I got for this episode. There's a few things I wanted to say. If you notice, don't know if you can see it in this wide shot very well. Maybe you can see it a little better over here. But I got a nice little jungle type tablecloth. That is all thanks to a Monkey Movie Club member, Jordy. Thank you, Jordy, for the tablecloth that you gave me. The plan is to just turn this place into a jungle. Vines, leaves, banana trees, whatever, man. Just jungle this place out. So big thanks to Jordy for the tablecloth. Sorry if, this episode, if I seem a little off. I have been busy. I've been very busy with the work and with a short film that I made for a competition. The short film is on this channel, so if you have not seen it, please go watch it. I'll leave a link in the description. It is called Lunch Break. It's 3.5 minutes. The short film competition we did, there were a few rules. One of the rules was it had to be under 5 minutes. And I was kind of freaking out about how I was going to tell a story, especially a horror story, in less than 5 minutes. I know it can be done. With the script I had written, it ended up being way too long of a script. We had a whole day of shooting where we shot like 2 pages of the script, the 7-page script, and those 2 pages were like 3.5 minutes. And I was like, no way in hell we're going to be able to shoot the rest of this script and make it 1.5 minutes. So we had to scrap that entire day of footage. We had to rewrite the script on the spot, and just, it was kind of a mess. But ultimately, I'm just glad to have the experience and force myself to make something, because I would not be Chimp Guy Movie Guy if I was just watching movies and talking about movies. I want to make some of my own, and I'm not expecting anything in this competition. I just more so deadlines help me create something. It forces me to do something. And here we are. It forced me to make something, and now it's out. It stars my girlfriend and my friend Cameron Davis. And yeah, Cameron's my girlfriend as well. No, and my girlfriend Emily. But yeah, go check it out. Thanks for watching the show. I like doing this. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this at 2 a.m. the day of. But yeah, we've got one more week of Monkey Spooky Club. Then we'll do our Bananarama for the month of October, and then we'll move on to our regularly scheduled programming. Let me tell you a little bit about next week's theme. Next week, the theme I presented to the club was Season of the Sequel. I did this because I feel like when it comes to horror, sequels are as present as blood, as masked killers. There are so many horror sequels, some great, some not. But that's the fun of it, We're not always going to watch highbrow, we watch schlock here too, I love schlock. Some schlock is good, and the schlock that we are watching next week for Season of the Sequel is Freddy versus Jason. Freddy versus Jason won the submission vote, which this week's votes went crazy with the everybody was switching their votes around. It was insane. But yeah, Freddy versus Jason. I'm not sure what movies I'm also going to talk about. Maybe I'll talk about just, slashers, famous slashers as a group. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, thanks for watching. Come back next week. Let's talk about Freddy vs. Jason. Talk about some other horror schlock, horror sequels maybe. And as always, I'm Chimp Guy. Thanks for watching.
You thought that I was wet, money flip, I got a trick. Another name for Richard is Dick, so get off mine. So get off mine.